Chumash and Rashi, the Torah portion. Tetzaveh. We just went through the clothes that make the man. To make the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. Shmoyne begadim, 8 different garments, and a regular Kohen wears 4 garments. The Chavod u'letzifaris, it is for a glory, honor, and a exaltedness. Now we go and continue. We are Shmois, the book of Exodus, chapter 29, verse 1. Now we go into the Kohanim being consecrated and how they should be consecrated, and the mitzvahs involved. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, first verse. Davar, and this is the thing or the matter, asher taseh, that you shall do, lehem, for them. Moshe is being commanded, right? That this is what he has to do for them, like kadesh oisam, to sanctify them or to consecrate them, whichever term you want to use. Lechanoi li, in order that they should be kohanim for me. In other words, to serve for me. Lekach par echad, should bring one bull, young bull, ben bakar. Well, ben bakar, then that's how we know it's young, right? The son of a bakar. This, yeah. Ve'elim shnayim, and 2 rams, tamimim, that are unblemished, that are pure. Okay, Rashi in verse 1. Lakach, kamoy kach, in other words, like take. Because the word lakach is not the grammatic way you would normally write it. So Rashi just says it means v'shtei gzeiros hein, and they're derived from 2 distinct roots. Achas shel kicha, one is the imperative of the 2-letter root word of kach, to take. Achas v'lekicha, and another is an imperative 3-letter root word is kicha, but lehem pisrein echad. Nevertheless, they both have the same meaning, to take. Okay. Par echad, 1 young bull. L'chaper al ma'isa egel shu par. Why? This is to atone for the sinful act of the golden calf, which was a young bull. Rashi explains. Remember that there's no chronological order in the Torah. The sin of the golden calf didn't happen yet. You know when it's going to happen? Next week's Torah portion. But this is the mitzvah of service in the Mishkan, in the sanctuary of God. That came after Yom Kippur, when they were atoned already for the sin of the golden calf. So just to give you a context, okay? Verse number 2. So there's 2 animal offerings, lechem matzos, and also bread that is matzah. In other words, it's kosher for Passover, right? Chalos matzos belulos, and matzah loaves mixed, that are belulos means mixed, v'shemen, with oil. Rekike matzos, and wafer matzos, v'shemen, also with oil. Soilas meshuchim b'shemen, rather they're anointed with oil. Soiles chitim, fine wheat flour. Tasei, some you should make them. Rashi in number 2. Rashi says, lechem matzos, v'chalas matzos, v'kiki matzos. So there's all these types of matzah: matzah bread, matzah loaves, matzah wafers. Harei ele shleisha, meaning there are 3 varieties of matzah: revucha, v'chalas, v'kikim, scalded, and loaves and wafers. Scalded, in other words, scalded like in oil, like when you just what you call when you fry like tuna, right? It's just on the outside, right? Right, not through and through. You scald it on the outside. Matzah bread is referred to below later as challah of oil bread. Because you put a lot of oil. As much oil as that which is scalded, as into loaves and wafers combined. So the log of oil that was used is 1/4 for the loaves, 1/4 for the wafers, and half for the scalded. So the scalded gets, double. 10 loaves were brought of each variety of matzah. Interesting. It doesn't say that here, but that's where Rashi tells us. Okay. Belula b'shemen, mixed with oil. Kishe heim kemach, when there's still flour. Yotzek b'hem shemen u'boilelim. In other words, what does it mean? It didn't say anything about water here, right? First, you take the flour, you mix it with water, and then you mix it with oil. One second. I'm sorry. No. Why did I say water? No. No water, just oil, it seems to me. Yeah, I don't know why I said water. Yeah, because while it's still flour, then you pour in you pour the oil. In other words, you might think that you're just cooking it you're baking it or frying it in oil. No. It's mixed with oil. That's what Rashi's saying. Meshuchim b'shemen, anointed with oil. Achar fiyosan. Anointed means after they're baked. That's a different idea. He would anoint it with the shape of the Greek letter chi, which is like some would say that's like the letter X. Different opinions on that. Okay. Rashi says it's like a nun of ours. Others say it's like an X. Debate on that. Okay. Verse number 3. And you should place them, meaning these 3 different types of matzahs, sal echad, into one basket. V'yikrav ta'oisam, and you shall bring them basal in the basket, v'esapar be'es shnei ha'elim, together with the bull and the 2 rams. Rashi number 3, yikrav ta'oisam, you shall bring them near el chatzar ha'mishkan b'yom ha'kamosei, to the courtyard of the Mishkan on the day that it is erected. Right. I think that means, I think that's a reference to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, because that's when the Mishkan was inaugurated. Okay. Verse number 4. Ves Aaron ves Banab, and as for Aaron and his sons, Takriv el Pesach Oyal Mayhed, you shall bring near to the entrance of the Oyal Mayhed of the tent of meeting, Rachatz Oisam B'mayim, and they should be washed in water. Rashi, and number 4, V'rachatzta Zutfilas Kol Haguf. That means immersion in the entire body. We've had that often in the Torah. It sounds like washing, like maybe just washing your hands, right? It could be. But no, Rachatz B'mayim refers to an immersion in the mikvah. Verse number 5. Then you shall take the garment, and you should dress Aaron as ketonis. His ketonis, you remember, is the undergarment, right? That's the undergarment. V'sami'il, that's like the robe, right? And the meal has the bells and the pomegranates on the bottom, if you recall. And it's called meal ha'ephod because it is, so to speak, serving the ephod. Then the ephod, which is on top of it, which is the ephod, which it holds on to the choshen. The choshen is the breastplate. And you should beautify him with a cheshiv of the ephod, which is like the belt of the ephod. Rashi afadate. And number 5. She beautified kashet v'sakin hachagora v'asnir mitzvoisa, adorn and enhance the appearance of the kohen gadol by binding the belt with the apron of the ephod around him. Here we go. It's a picture. So there is the belt that's in front. It's not such a clear picture. There's a belt over there. I guess from there you learn a belt brings beauty. Okay, verse number 6. V'samta mitznefes, and she placed the mitznefes, which is the hat, which is a similar kind of hat to this, right? Here. No, well, it's larger. It's larger, the hat, right? Okay. So Al Raishay, put it on his head. And Asat is Nezer HaKodesh, and you should place the Nezer, the crown, HaKodesh, ala mitznefes, on the mitznefes. Rashi quoted this earlier, if you remember when we dealt with this. Let's go see in Rashi number 6. Nezer HaKodesh. Zeh HaTzitz. This is the tzitz. Remember, the tzitz is the golden plate. It goes on his forehead. But what does it say over here? It goes on his hat, right? Rashi dealt with this. It was a contradiction because earlier it says it was on the forehead, now it says on the hat. Ala mitznefes Rashi kamosh Rashi l'mayla, like I explained earlier in chapter 28, verse 37. Because of the middle string, so the tzitz had strings on the side over here, because it was on. How do you stay on a forehead, right? Had strings on the side and string in the middle that went on top over the hat. So that's what it means, on the hat, because the strings are going to go on the hat, right, in the back, and the 3 ties come in the back that will hold it now in its place. The 2 strings at its ends, the 3, right, there's 2 strings, right, it's not 1 string, it's 2 strings, so that way, becomes 2 strings here, 2 strings on each side, so you have the 3 places, 6 strings all together, that now are tied behind the neck of the Kohen Gadol, and the tzitz over the mitznefes is like a kind of a hat, because it's going over here and going over here, so the strings will be shaped like a hat, so to speak. That's what it means, on the hat. Not the plate itself, the golden plate itself, but the strings. Verse number 7. And you shall take the oil, shemen hamishcha, which is anointing oil, v'yitzakta al roshei, and shall pour it on his head. Meshafta isay, and you shall anoint him. Rashi Meshachto, so you shall anoint him. Av Meshichazu Kiminchi. This too is smearing of oil that's in the form of an achi in Greek letters. It's interesting why he says it in the Greek letter. Why didn't you just say a nun in the Hebrew letter, right? Before he told us that, right? It mean I don't know why he does that. Nice and Shemin al Reishi. He puts the oil on the Kohen Gadol's head, bein risei einav, and among his eyelashes, umechabram be'etzboi, and he connects the oil in those three places with his finger. So he goes like this, right there, like this, and on his head, over here, because if you remember, the hat doesn't go like this. It goes back like this because it has to be placed here for the tefillin. Doesn't mean he's necessarily wearing tefillin. I mean, maybe, because back in the day, they used to wear tefillin a whole day. Holy people used to wear tefillin a whole day. So perhaps, I don't know. I don't want to say, because Rashi did say earlier that the hat was back here, so there would be place for the tefillin over here. So he's taking from the oil and making like this. I guess it's like a triangle, it seems to me. I don't know why he says like a nun. Maybe like that then. Oh, because you're not going back. You're going like this, so it's like a nun. Yeah. Okay. Got it. That makes sense now. Okay, verse number 8. And his sons bring forth and dress them with their ketonis, which is the undergarment, the tunic. Verse number 9. V'chagarta oisam, and you shall gird them, right? Which is with a belt, right? Oisam avnate, with the avnate, which the sash, right? It's like a gartel, like what I wear, a gartel, right? Like this, but it's a much thicker one because it was made from many different. I think it was made from the different wools and so on, right? So, sorry, yeah. So you shall girdle them with the avnate, with the belt, with the sash. Aaron ubanav, Aaron and his son, v'chavashte lahem, and you shall wrap them. Chavashte, you wrap them, clothe them. Migba'is, with migba'is. Migba'is is hats. They could. Mitznefis is hat for the Kohen Gadol. Migba'is is the hat for the Kohen. It's a different hat. Here, this is a regular Kohen. So first of all, you can see he's got the gartel over here, and that's his hat. His hat's more like a straight up, which this is more roundish for the Kohen Gadol. V'haisa lehem kohuna, and it will be for them a kohuna, meaning the priesthood, chukas olam, an everlasting statutory law, umalesa yad Aaron v'yad banav, and you will fill the hands of Aaron and his sons. Okay, let's see Rashi on this. V'haisa lehem, and it'll be for them. Milu yadayim zeh, the filling of the hands shall be in the kunas olam, an everlasting kohuna. What does it mean to fill their hands? So how does it translate over here? It explains, it's interesting. Filling the hands means to install them. That's the way it's translated over here. But it literally means to fill the hands, meaning this is how you are installing them and giving them their position. right? By doing all of this, that's how they become anointed. That's how they get their position as permanent, everlasting kahuna, priesthood. Umalaysan, you should fill al yedei dvarim eila through these things. Yeah. In other words, the inauguration is by donning these priestly garments, right? Is sort of like, it says these things. What's these things? Meaning the putting on of the garments is the inauguration, right? Yad Aaron, Yad Bonab, the hand of Aaron, the hand of his sons. B'mili Pekudas Kahuna, the inauguration, the appointment of Kahuna, of priesthood. So what's interesting is, we said about, what do we say? You have to bring offerings, and you put the oil, right, and so on. But that's not what consecrates them. Because the verse over here is speaking about their sash and their hats, which is the finishing of what they're wearing. So with this now, you understand what it means. The clothes make the man. It's literally making them. Literally making by putting this on them that they have the position. Psh, wow. New meaning to those words. New meaning to those words. Okay. Verse number 10. Vikrafte isapar. And now you're going to bring near, you're going to offer the par, the young bull, lifnei oyel ma'ed, before the oyel ma'ed, the tent of meeting, with samach Aaron, and he will place Aaron, Ubanav, and his sons, his yedei, their hands, al roish, on the head, hapar, of the bull. No Rashi. Verse 11. B'shachachta, and you shall slaughter, as hapar, the young bull, lifnei Hashem, before God. Pesach Oyel Moed, which is the entrance of the tent, Oyel Moed, of the tent of meeting. Rashi, Pesach Oyel Moed, B'chotzer Mishkan Shelifnei HaPesach, means in the courtyard of the Mishkan, in front of its entrance. Right? Let's take a picture here. Here. This is the tent of meeting, right? Because it's the holy of the holies, and the holy of holies, right, is over here. So it's going to be inside the courtyard over here, where the altar is, the outside altar, which is for the offerings. One second. Yeah. Okay. Verse number 12. And you should take from the blood, you will take from the blood, hapar, of the young bull, benasata, and you will place it, al karnes. Karnes means the corners, hamizbeach, of the altar, be'etzbacha, with your finger, it's called Adam, and the remaining of the blood, of all the blood, tishbaich, you shall spill, you shall pour, el yesod mizbeach, to the base of the altar. Let's get a better. Hold on. This picture is better. Okay, here are the corners of the altar, and this is the base. So in times of the Holy Temple, that base was actually connected to to flowing water underneath, and it went out. But in the desert, it wasn't, and it was just at the base of the altar. The rest of it was spilled. Okay. Okay, Rashi in number 12. Al karnais, on the horns, meaning the corners. L'mayla bekarnis at mamish, on top in the actual corners. Ves Adam, and the blood. Shiare Adam, meaning the remnants of the blood, the leftover. El Yisrael Mizbeach goes to the base of the altar. Can mean blitas base kibul also iloi. A sort of protruding receptacle was made for the altar. Savi saviv all the way around. La'achish Allah amma min aris. After it rose an amma from the ground. I don't know what that means exactly. 1 second. Oh. So yeah, okay, so there was a base here all the way around. That was an amma. This is an amma, remember, a hand's length, all the way around. And so that's what he's explaining, that foundation, protruded all the way around to pour the remnants of the blood there. Okay, verse number 13. And then you shall take, it's called a chelib. Take all of the fat, hamechasa, that covers hakerev, the innards, besa yiseris, the diaphragm, ala kaved, with the liver, ve'eshtei akloyus, and the 2 kidneys, vesa chelib, and the fat asher alehem, that's upon them. V'hiktarta hamizbecha. Hiktarta means that you'll make it go up in smoke, hamizbecha, on the altar. Okay, Rashi. Chelab mechasus hakerev, 13. The fat that covers the innards, who akrum she'ala keres. This is the membrane of the stomach. It's an old French. It's called ta'il. How do you say that? Toli.
It's not a word.
Huh?
It's not a word anymore.
No, it's still a word in Old French. Not a word you're familiar with. All right. That's what you say. There's the diaphragm. He tarpisha, the rav, the dab, and the kavda shekarim. So it's the membrane of the liver that's called a brise. Is that something today? Okay. Ala kaved, with the liver. Af mina kaved tol lima. So they take some of the liver along with the diaphragm. Okay. You need to be an animal expert over here. Verse number 14. This basar habar, and now for the flesh of the bull, right? These were the fats and the blood we were talking about till now, and some of the organs, right? As far as the flesh, and its skin, and its waist, tisreif ba'esh, you should burn in a fire, outside of the encampment, chatashu. This is a sin offering. So this is the encampment, so it's got to be outside of here. Outside of this, right? That's where it's going to be. Remember, this is a unique one-time offering, right? What is it for? To inaugurate, part of the inauguration of Aaron and his sons into the Kohuna, into the priesthood. Okay? Rashi in 14, to sort of by age, that you are burning it in a fire. So Rashi says, we don't find this idea, a sin offering, whose blood is placed on the outer altar, which is entirely burned, other than this one. Because usually a sin offering, the meat would be eaten by the Kohanim. That's part of how it brings atonement. right? That the meat would be eaten by the Kohanim, but this one isn't. I guess because this is, I mean, whatever. It's the inauguration, so it's not. Okay, 15. As ha'ayil, and as for the ram, ha'echad, there was 2 rams, but the first ram, tikach, you should take v'samchu, and they should place Aaron ubanav. Aaron ubanav is yedeim, their hands, al roish, al upon roish, the head, ha'ayil of the ram. Okay, v'shachatata, and you shall slaughter es ha'ayil, this first ram, right? And you should take his damai, its blood, and you should sprinkle it, toss it on the altar, saviv, all around. So it's interesting. By the bull, by the young bull, it says to place the blood, right, on the corners of the altar, right? Here it says you should toss it on the altar. Doesn't say all around. Doesn't say on the corners. Okay, let's see Rashi. Dash. I like that word. Zarakta. Yeah, you should dash it. Okay. Rashi, and then 16, Zarakta, that you shall dash it or toss it, bikli, with a vessel.
On the altar means in the fire.
Because the other one, no.
No?
No. Because then it can be all around. It's not on the top, then it wouldn't be all around, right? So when it means on the altar, I mean, the altar is not just the top. The whole thing is the altar, right? So since it says all around, so it means not on top of it, but around it, right?
On the corners?
No, before it said on the corners, and before it said with a finger. Now it says you're tossing it, right? So, right, with a bucket, exactly. So you hold a vessel, v'zorek keneged a keren, tossing it towards the corner of the altar. How does it get corner over here? That's interesting. Because it doesn't, the verse before it said corner, now it doesn't. Aha. So it's not placed directly on the corner, but towards the corner. Kadesh Yirem Lekan Lekan, so that the blood should be visible on both sides. It means, okay, here, I'm sorry. Okay. This is the altar. It's got corners, right? So if you sprinkle on a corner, if you sprinkle on a corner, what do you get? Corner here, it means corner. What do you get? 2 sides. So you do it on 2 corners, right? What are you going to get? 4 sides. That's what it means around and around. So it doesn't mean like you go around the whole thing, because it says around. When the word around means, so it means you're sprinkling on 2 opposite corners, and therefore the blood is all around. That's the idea of around. Okay? Right, in order that the blood should be visible on both sides of the corner. And this is not applied directly with a finger, except the sin offering, right? This is the ram, not the sin. The bull is the sin offering. Why is the bull the sin offering? Because a young bull is what they sinned with the golden calf. So therefore, using it for as a sin offering. Aval shar zvochim in keren v'lo yetzba. But other sacrifices don't require the blood to be on the corners or with a finger. In other words, the two corners. Their blood application is from the midpoint of the altar below, as opposed to the corners on the top of the altar, getting all four corners. The kohen does not ascend on the ramp on the mizbeach to apply the blood. And he stands on the ground and he tosses it with the vessel onto the wall of the altar. Okay. 17. Vesa ayil. Now, the ram itself, what are you going to do with it? Tinateyach, you should cut it. L'nisachav, to its pieces. V'rachatztai, and you should wash it. Kirboy, the innards. U'karaov, and its feet. V'nasata el nisachav, and put them with their pieces. Val Roshai, together with its head. Kirashi in 17, al nisachav, with its pieces. Here the word means on the pieces. Im nisachav, it should be with its pieces. Musaf al shar nisachim, in addition to the other pieces. Okay. Vihiktarta, and then what you should do is burn is ayil, the entire kol ayil. Kol means all, the entire ram. Hamizbecha, on the altar. Oila, this is an ascent offering, right? Hu la Hashem, to God. Reach nichayach, it is a pleasant fragrance. Reach means a fragrance, smell. Nichayach means pleasant, pleasing. Ishe, a fire offering, from the word eish, fire. La Hashem, who? To Hashem it is. Rashi in 18, a pleasing fragrance. Nachas ruah, why is it, what's pleasing fragrance? God wants to smell the fire of the animal being burnt? No. Nachas ruach lafani, this is a contentment before me, shamarti that I spoke that you should do something, but and you did as I asked you to do. That's what's pleasing to God. Not the smell, but the fact that we did what God asked. Isha, Lashon Eish is an expression of fire. This is the burning of the limbs upon the fire. In other words, what does it mean the burning of the limbs? Because there's no, it doesn't say here, but, oh no, it says the whole. I don't know why you have to have that to denote the limbs upon the fire, because it says the whole of the ram has to be on the altar. So isn't that kind of obvious? So I don't know what Rashi means to say there, as if the limbs are being added to the equation.
Intersection to make sure we put everything.
But it says the whole ram. So why? So how would you think that the limbs would not be put on there? I don't know. Maybe, you know what? Maybe it's emphasizing because the sin offering, what happened to the meat? It was burnt outside. So you might think, right? So there's an emphasis over here that this part would also maybe be similar to the ram, to the bull, right? To the young bull. But no, all of it goes on the altar. Nothing goes outside. Yeah. Okay, maybe that's what the explanation is. That's makes a little sense to me. I don't know if that makes sense to you. But all right, folks. Tanya coming up in a few moments.